Welcome to Therapy Thursday, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about depression versus spiritual isolation in hopes that talking about that difference will kind of motivate somebody who's not sure about if they need therapy or if they need to deepen their relationship with Christ, if that makes sense. So let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know, depression can manifest in many ways, and there's a difference between medical depression and emotional depression. I've talked about this on my channel a few times, so you can check out some of those videos if you're interested. But in short, the medical aspect of depression can happen when there's a set of neurons in your brain that isn't working correctly. And then emotional is typically when something circumstantial has happened in your life to cause you to be depressed. So those are the differences. So when we hear the word depression, we hear it a lot in sermons, and we just hear people just use the word depression a lot. Like, I'm depressed, and she's depressed, or you just hear it a lot. I hear it a lot. So I know y'all hear it a lot. And most of the time when people hear those, especially in sermons and especially when it's talked about in the Christian community, people are typically thinking only about the emotional depression as if it's a choice or a lack of faith. Whereas if it's medical depression, it is not a choice, nor is it a lack of faith or because of a lack of faith. In the same way as if you found out somebody had a physical ailment like cancer that is literally attacking your body, no one would say, oh, well, it's a lack of faith, that's why you got cancer. That is not how that goes, and that is not how medical depression should be treated. In the same way, people will talk about depression and say, oh, that's attack from the enemy, which is technically true. Cancer is also an attack from the enemy. So if they're both attacks from the enemy, then you should seek treatment for both cancer, right? And you should also seek treatment for depression, especially if it's medical and it's really deteriorating your life. So that is the same thing. In both cases, you should also pray and continue seeking the Lord. But you also should seek treatment if he doesn't miraculously heal you. So that is the difference. If y'all don't know, I'm so passionate about this subject. It gets me real fired up. And I have medical major depressive disorder, for those who don't know. So it hits home deeply for me. And I'm also a trained therapist. I went to grad school for clinical mental health counseling. So all of the mental health world affects me deeply, but depression affects me a little deeper because that is my lived experience. And it just always rubs me deeply the wrong way in the Christian community and in general when people speak about depression and they're not sure, one, what kind of depression that they're talking about, and they are not talking about it correctly. So again, just like I've never heard anybody say that someone has cancer or diabetes or whatever else physical because of a lack of faith. So I'm tired of hearing people say that about mental health situations. So that's my little side note rant. Now, when you have medical depression, there are emotional sides to it. Because your brain is not functioning correctly, then you are more sad, and it is harder for you to do the things that a person with a normally active brain would be able to do. So that can manifest in you not reading the Bible as much, you not connecting with your spiritual walk as much. It's as a result of the depression, not that you weren't connected to Christ and that's how you got depression. So that is a very big distinction. I'm gonna say it again. Let me say it again. Medical depression can lead to a distance in your spiritual walk because your brain is not functioning normally. That can be a result. But a decrease in your spiritual walk does not always lead to depression. A lack of faith doesn't cause depression, but sometimes medical depression can cause a lack of faith. So let's just get that very, very, very clear for those who are unsure. So if you are dealing with some emotional turmoil and you're actually not sure about whether you should move forward with actual therapy, or you think that it is strictly a spiritual thing and you just need to, pray more and dive in, really figure that out. One of the ways you can figure that out is think about your life overall and how these actions came about. If you feel disconnected to God and your emotions are different than they were before, is there something that happened? Did you deal with a trauma? Did you have a loss? Did you lose your job? And then that led into you feeling depressed, or did it come out of nowhere? Most likely, if it came out of nowhere, then you definitely should seek some mental health treatment. For sure. And even if it didn't come out of nowhere, if you find yourself going downhill because of something that has happened recently in your life, it is good to see about therapy and mental health services, because what can happen is something like grief, depression can start to alter your brain, and then you'll begin to teach it to not function correctly. So there are a lot of things to think about, but my biggest take-home point is to just encourage you, especially if you are someone who is a Christian and who is not really well versed in what mental health is, and specifically depression. I just encourage you to not be so quick to say things that you don't know about. That's just the best way that I can say. Don't assume that somebody is not praying enough or not reading their Bible enough because they say that they're depressed. Because you don't know their story. If you really are concerned about this person, then reach out to them and dig in more to find out more about what the situation is before you just encourage them to pray and start judging that they aren't close enough to God as to why they're feeling that way. So I just want to really, really encourage us to just allow people to feel more comfortable, because I probably will do a separate video about my personal journey, but I've been really hurt by the ignorance of the Christian community and the things that people have said to me about my journey, making me feel like my depression was because of something that I've done, like I chose to be depressed and my relationship with God is not good enough and that's why I'm depressed. When for me, my depression came out of nowhere and my relationship with God wasn't altered, and then depression came. One of my depressive episodes came when I felt the closest to God. So my brain just shut down, and that's what people don't understand. Depression is definitely not a choice. Any mental health situation that you are dealing with is definitely not a choice. Any clinical mental health issue that anybody is dealing with is not a choice. So please don't feel ashamed. Please don't feel condemned or judged by that. Just push forward and seek the help you need. And I just encourage, if this video happens to be watched by any of the leaders in the church, please, I encourage you to stop listing depression in your sermons when you list sins, because I see that all the time. It's like, stop fornication and stop this, or we rebuke fornication and we rebuke depression and we rebuke, which it should be rebuked. Like, it's not, the way my brain is getting attacked is not of God. So I get that. But I'm just saying, I would rather depression be listed with the health concerns, not listed with the sins, because fornication is also an attack from the enemy, but it's a choice. Depression is an attack from the enemy that we are not choosing. So I just want to, encourage us. Just like cancer, nobody's choosing it. Nobody ever lists cancer in sermons when they're talking about sin. No one talks about cancer as being a result of lack of faith in God, any of that. So I just encourage us to, just not speak on things that we don't have the full story about. That would just be really helpful. It will really help the mental health community. It will help people not suffer in silence so much. It will help decrease suicide. It will really just help the whole world a lot, because we have a lot of violence that's happening because people aren't getting proper treatment, because people don't take their issues seriously. There's just a big ripple effect from something that can seem so small, something someone has heard in a sermon, that now they think that depression is because of their relationship with God. And so now, not only is their relationship with God also hurt, now they also aren't seeking medical treatment because of something they heard in a sermon that probably wasn't said in an educated way. So that is my rant on that. Let's just move forward. Please, world, please, church, specifically the Black church, please, please, please. Okay, that is all for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember to love always. Bye.